A wise man told me we are never given a dream without being given the power to make it true. You'll have to work for it, though. I'm Ron Schneider. Back in the 60s, I grew up around California theme parks, dreaming that someday I could make my living with that same kind of magic. In 1971, I got my first performing job at Magic Mountain. The 40 years that followed were one wild ride. And these are the stories of others who had that same dream and made it come true. And now back for more with Disney legend Sully Sullivan. Your days back at the Jungle Cruise, I heard you use a phrase, and you mentioned it in the book, and I wanted to ask you about this. What is a jungle bunny?
It was us guys that worked out there on the boats. And we referred to ourselves as jungle bunnies.
Oh, gosh.
That was back in 1955. That's a long time ago.
I guess. Another question about the New York World's Fair. Any good stories about the opening up there? Because I heard all sorts of things about the Lincoln Robot and Small World. And
Well, one of the interesting things that happened is that there was an article in the Sunday newspaper of how to steal the Lincoln figure.
how to steal?
How to steal a Lincoln figure. And we all read it, and we all said, oh my God, what's going on? Bob Matheson got a phone call from Dick, and Dick says, get Sully over there, and he stays with that figure until we put it in the coffin. This is when we were closing. And he says, have him stay with it until Neil and the guys get over there, put that thing in the coffin. And so I went over there, and the 300 seat theater is empty. It's just me and Abe. So I was sitting there and bored. So I just got up and I went over and I walked up on the stage, and I was looking up at Abe, because Abe was a pretty good sized guy. Yeah. And I was standing there looking up at Abe, and his whiskers, each whisker was put in, his hair was put in one at a time to make him realistic. And I'm standing there and I'm looking at him, and his eyes are open. And all of a sudden he goes and looks down at me and scared the living stuff out of me. So, yeah, and because when Abe would every once in a while go into some gyrations that were almost obscene, but he was. But we finally fixed that. He's a good figure now. Good he's animatronics.
Yeah. Have you? I'd heard a story about when Grandma from the Carousel of Progress flew to New York as a publicity stunt. They bought her a seat on a commercial line. First class seat.
First class seat for Grandma.
So it's true.
That's exactly right. Walt wanted to do it for publicity, for the fun of it. Yeah. Because Walt had he was a funny guy.
I had a similar experience with Figment. The first time that I actually saw Figment in person, I was touring Imagineering. This is back when I was working at Disneyland at the Golden Horseshoe, and they would give us tours. And we went one day for lunch. They took us through WED, and it was a lunch break, so nobody was in the offices. The guide walks you through, and they point out the different rooms like that. And I broke off from the group because I saw in the next room was where Mapo was, where they built the attractions. And there was the flying machine from the opening scene of Journey into Imagination. It was sitting up there on blocks. And I saw it and I recognized it, and I went over to take a look at it. And Figment came up out of the chamber pot and waved at me. And it was only then that I turned around and realized there was a guy behind me on a ladder who was wiring the thing up. And he did that. And that was the first time I'd ever seen Figment in person.
Yeah.
The
guys at the studio, at WED particularly, and Mapo, you had to pay attention to what was going on, because there were some crazy guys up there. Fun, crazy guys. It was always a laugh.
The Imagineers, when they were told they were going to be building a theme park with no Mickey Mouse in it, they were determined to put Mickey Mouse in Epcot. And so that's where we get all the hidden Mickeys.
There are hidden Mickeys everywhere.
Yeah, there are now. Oh, yeah.
They're not. It's not particularly at Disneyland, but at Walt Disney World and at Epcot, there are hidden Mickeys everywhere.
I have a friend of mine named Arlen Miller. Arlen, you wouldn't know him. Arlen Miller was a fan like myself, who started to realize that there were all these hidden Mickeys. And he wrote to Imagineering and said, "Are you guys hiding Mickey Mouse in the attractions?" This is after Epcot opened. He spotted him there. And he got credit for, I think, I don't know if it's Marty Sklar or who was, but said to him, "You found us out. That's what we've been doing."
Yeah, it sounds like something Marty'd say.
Yeah, now they're absolutely everywhere. There were a couple in Imagineering, in Imagination rather, that I spotted. That
They're everywhere. Mm-hmm. And people, they say there's this many. Well, I don't know how many there are. I don't know if we really know how many there are out there.
There are books full of them.
No, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I was going to tell you about the film I did. A couple of years ago, I heard about a movie that was being made called The Further Adventures of Walt's Frozen Head. I saw the trailer for this movie, and it was like a student film, but very well produced. Walt wasn't in it. They didn't have any shots of Walt Disney in it. A couple of months after I saw this trailer, I got a call from the guy who was producing the movie, and I got to play Walt Disney's Frozen Head. I shaved off the beard. Amazingly, I looked, of course I was 65 at the time, which is exactly the age Walt was. I shaved off the beard, I had the nose, and I read everything in the world about the guy's life. And if you go on YouTube, look for Walt's Frozen Head, you can see the entire movie. It's a good script. It's kind of like a Frank Capra movie.
Really?
Like a buddy film.
Huh.
And no cheap shots. And but it's pretty good. I'm pretty proud of it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, speaking of that, I don't know if you've ever been to San Francisco. And been to the museum. Well, Ron and Diane did one heck of a job. That's really a great tribute to her dad and the boss.
It is very moving.
And it was beautifully done. And I got to that. I got through it all. I spent 2.5 days up there, and I read everything on every wall. And if you are a Disney fan, you got to go to San Francisco. And but they did a beautiful job. And as I was going out and leaving in the room, I felt a little tear down there. It was a really good story about the boss.
I was the one time I got to visit, and I was just so impressed with everything. And suddenly this guy comes up and asks me if I'm having a good time, and I looked way up there.
That was Ron.
And it was Ron Miller. And I said, "Yeah, I'm having a wonderful time." And he stepped to one side, and there she was, Diane Disney.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Beautiful lady.
And, oh, so sweet. And I kissed her hand. And we talked for a long time about the Golden Horseshoe and about Walt and everything like that. And it was just a magic moment for me.
Yeah,
But
Ron was a good guy, and Diane was a beautiful lady. She was a sweetheart. In fact, in the back of the book, in the back of my book, there's a story in there about how we interviewed her at Epcot, and how she was a neat lady. And Jennifer, her daughter, Diane's daughter, we ran into her up at Silverado, and we talked about that day, and she says, I wasn't supposed to be there, but I snuck into the car with Mom and Dad, or Mama and Grandma. But she remembered that. But that was a neat morning, sitting there listening to Bubba and Mrs. Disney and Diane and Jennifer, and I went out to see the show, and I called him and told him I was Bill Sullivan, a retired vice president of Magic Kingdom, and I was going to come out and I'd like to see the show, and see the museum, and in the background I had, "Who's that? Is that Sully?" And it was Ron. He says, "I'll be there." So when we took the tour, and when we came out, Ron was at the exit there, and we got to spend some time with him, had lunch with him. Good guy.
The night of the first preview of Epcot Center, I was standing in the store in the French Pavilion when they opened the gates, the other end of the park. But I'm way in the back, we'll look at this, and I'm walking around, and the beautiful merchandise on display, and I pick it up, and everything's $125. And I'm just, okay, people are coming, they'll have money. And the only other person in the room was Ron Miller. And I recognized him, and he said, "You having a good time?" He always asks me if I'm having a good time. He said, "You having a good time?" I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "You going to buy anything?" I said, "Not with what you're paying me." We mentioned the book. I should give this another plug over here. This is a wonderful book. It's written with Jim Korkus, got you started on it.
Yeah.
And I'm holding it right side up now. From Jungle Cruise Skipper to Disney Legend, 40 years of magical memories at Disney, and he's got them. It's a wonderful piece, and you really, there are so many. Everybody's got a book now. I've got a book. Everybody's got a book out there. Anybody who's ever been to Disney has a book out there. But this is from the guy who was there from the beginning, and
there's my legend pin.
Now tell me about becoming a legend. That's exciting.
I was always envious of everybody up on Main Street, and that were the legends, and I'd be great to be something like that. I get a phone call one day from Michael Eisner. He says, "Sully," he says, "you're coming out here to Disneyland, and we're going to make you a Disney legend." I said, "You're going to do what?" He says, "You're going to be a Disney legend." And I was dumbfounded, because that was one of the things I really wanted, and because the people that were in there were all my friends, and it was just what an honor to be a Disney legend. And I was a Jungle Cruise guy. I was a ticket taker on the Jungle Cruise, and I made it to be the vice president of the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, and I was absolutely pleased. And I took my whole family out, and the big ones and the little ones, and I was awarded the Disney Legend Award, and I was very, very proud.
Who else was inducted at the same time you were?
Jim Corwin, Tom Nabby,
Uh-huh.
and a couple other guys I don't know who had. Let's see, Chuck Boyjong was there, and Indian Aramaki, chef at Disneyland.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember else. I think that's. I don't know who else was there, but Nabby was hired by Walt.
Mm-hmm. He was Tom Sawyer.
He was Tom Sawyer. Well, and that's on his business card. He says, "I was hired by Walt."
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway,
I don't know. Do you keep up with the industry now? Are there any attractions that you have heard about that you're interested in, or?
I stay involved with the industry through IAPA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't go out to the park, because it's frustrating. It was my park, and I see things that I don't like. Last time I was out there, I saw things I didn't like, but it was frustrating to me because I couldn't get it fixed, because I knew it was wrong. And but I did make a phone call or two, and I said, "They can have it. I've had my time. I did what I wanted to do. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I enjoyed the last 10 years was training people and training new guys and gals coming up, and I really enjoyed that. And so anyway,
I don't get there very often myself, and part of the reason is I was spoiled. I remember when you could park 50 feet from the gate and walk into Disneyland, and now it is such an ordeal just to get to the parks, so I don't go as often as I should. I'm so grateful for people like Jeff Lang and Lou Mangello, who put wonderful videos up online of all the attractions and the entertainment in the park. So I get to keep up with things in that way. Again, I want to recommend the book, From Jungle Cruise Skipper to Disney Legend. My guest has been William Sully Sullivan. Thank you so much for coming. This has been an honor.
my pleasure.
Wonderful. I'm Ron Schneider, and just want to say, follow your bliss. It's a wild ride.